It's the 3rd of July, 1973. The Hammersmith Odeon, West London. David Bowie walks out onto the stage in full Ziggy Stardust costume, the lightning bolt face, the platform boots, the whole construction. And the crowd goes absolutely berserk. 3,500 people packed into a venue that smelled of cigarette smoke and possibility. This was the peak. This was the moment the character had been building toward for 2 years. And then, after the last song, Bowie leans into the microphone and says, "Not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do." The hall goes quiet. Some people start crying. A few think it's a joke. It isn't. The Spiders from Mars are finished, right there, on stage, in real time. Standing a few feet away, his Les Paul still warm from the last chord, is Mick Ronson. He knew. He'd been told in advance. The drummer, Woody Woodmansey, and the bassist, Trevor Bolder, they hadn't. They found out the same way the audience did. Live, without warning, in the middle of what turned out to be the most famous band breakup in glam rock history. But Mick knew. And he played the last chord anyway, the way he always played everything. Clean, controlled, and completely without drama. If you've never heard that name before, that's exactly the problem. That's what this story is about. Before we go any further, if you're into rock history that digs past the famous names and into the people who actually built the sound, hit subscribe and leave a like. It genuinely helps this channel find the people who need to hear these stories. Mick Ronson was born on May 26, 1946, in Kingston upon Hull, a port city in East Yorkshire that has always produced tough, unpretentious people, and very little rock and roll mythology. The city was built on fishing and industry, not on glamour. It wasn't the kind of place that launched guitar heroes. He started playing as a teenager, drawn in by Duane Eddy's clean twang, Jeff Beck's controlled aggression, and the melodic intelligence of Mick Taylor. By his early 20s, Ronson was genuinely excellent. But Hull was not London, and in the late 1960s British music business, that distance was enormous. Not in miles, but in access, visibility, and the specific kind of luck that got you noticed. When David Bowie tracked him down, Mick Ronson was working as a gardener for Hull City Council, marking out a rugby pitch with white lines on a wet afternoon. That image stays with you. A musician of real ability, spending his days measuring out fields for a sport he probably didn't follow, because that was the job available. Bowie came to Hull looking for something specific. He found it. What he saw in Ronson was a guitarist with classical training, a natural ear for arrangement, and a physical stage presence that was almost paradoxical, powerful and grounded, not theatrical at all, which made it work perfectly next to Bowie's theatrical excess. He brought Ronson down to London. Everything that followed changed rock music. With Trevor Bolder on bass and Woody Woodmansey on drums, Ronson completed the Spiders from Mars. Over the next 2 years, in a run of creative output that still hasn't been fully appreciated, Ronson and Bowie made Hunky Dory, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, Aladdin Sane and Pin-Ups. 4 albums in roughly 18 months. Ronson wrote the string arrangements for all of them. He built the guitar tones, that particular thick, singing, slightly overdriven Les Paul sound that you now associate with the entire era of glam rock. He served as the band's musical director. He was the one who translated Bowie's often non-technical ideas into actual music that musicians could play. Bowie had the concept and the persona. Ronson had the architecture. Bowie himself understood this. Years later he said, "Mick was the perfect foil for the Ziggy character. He was very much a salt-of-the-earth type, the blunt northerner with a defiantly masculine personality. As a rock duo, I thought we were every bit as good as Mick and Keith, or Axl and Slash." That comparison, Mick and Keith, that is not a small thing to say. And he said it about someone most people couldn't name. Then there is Lou Reed. In 1972, while the Spiders were at their peak, Bowie and Ronson produced Transformer, the album that finally broke Reed commercially after years of cult status. Ronson didn't just play guitar on it, he played piano. He wrote the string arrangements, including the ones on Walk on the Wild Side, those famous quietly descending strings that underpin the whole song. The bass line gets all the attention, rightly so, but it's the strings that give the song its particular emotional color. That was Ronson. He built the sonic atmosphere of a record that has sold continuously for over 50 years, and the people who bought it mostly had no idea who he was. After Hammersmith, Ronson tried going solo. His debut, Slaughter on 10th Avenue, came out in 1974 and included Only After Dark, probably the most complete portrait of what Ronson sounded like when he was the one making the decisions. It's melodic and a little restless and genuinely good. His manager, Tony DeFries, had real plans to make Ronson a solo star. The problem was structural. Many people who showed up to his concerts were hoping David Bowie might appear. When Bowie didn't walk out, the energy didn't transfer. Ronson was not built for the center of a spotlight. He was built for the space just to the left of it, the position where all the real work gets done. The solo stage felt like the wrong shape for who he actually was. What gave his career a second life, and by some accounts gave him something more than a career, was Ian Hunter, former frontman of Mott the Hoople, a band that owed its commercial recovery in the early 70s to Bowie writing All the Young Dudes for them. Hunter and Ronson found each other in the mid-70s and stayed found. Ronson played on Hunter's 1975 self-titled album, which produced Once Bitten, Twice Shy, a top 20 UK hit, and one of the best rock and roll singles of that decade. In 1979, they went back into the studio and cut You're Never Alone with a Schizophrenic, pulling in members of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band for the sessions. The live record that followed, Welcome to the Club, captured something genuinely electric. Two men who were not exactly famous anymore, playing like they had something to prove and the talent to prove it. They went out on the road together repeatedly. It was a real partnership, not a professional arrangement. In April 1992, Ronson walked out onto the Wembley stage one last time. The Freddie Mercury tribute concert was one of the largest rock events ever staged. 80,000 people in the stadium, hundreds of millions watching on television. He performed with Ian Hunter, and David Bowie was there too, not as part of Ronson's set, but sharing the same stage, the same night, for the first time in nearly 2 decades. It was the three of them, together, for what turned out to be the last time. By then, Ronson was already ill. The cancer had been diagnosed, and he knew what the night at Wembley meant. He played anyway, clean, controlled, exactly what was needed. He died on April 29, 1993, 46 years old. His last hours were spent with his wife Susie, his sister Maggie, and Ian Hunter, who had been there through the long years after the Glam spotlight moved on. David Bowie contributed to his posthumous album, Heaven and Hull. So did John Mellencamp, Joe Elliott, Chrissie Hynde, Martin Chambers, and Ian Hunter. It was a gathering of musicians who knew precisely what they owed him, the kind of tribute that says more than any review. Rolling Stone ranked him the 64th greatest guitarist in history in 2003, then revised that to 41st in 2012. Gibson issued a tribute model of his 1968 Les Paul Custom. Critics who discover him for the first time still use the word underrated, which is accurate, and also slightly misses the point. The thing about Mick Ronson is not that he was overlooked by accident, it's that he was overlooked by temperament, his own. He was built to make the person standing next to him sound like a genius. Bowie knew this. Lou Reed benefited from it. Ian Hunter was saved by it. And Ronson, who had learned to lay out rugby pitch markings in the rain, and who never quite got comfortable being the one people were looking at, seems to have accepted that arrangement for most of his life. He gave the sound to other people. He kept a craft for himself. Next time you hear Starman or Suffragette City or Walk on the Wild Side, you are hearing Mick Ronson. The guitar, the strings, the architecture underneath everything. He just never got his name on the building. If this one landed for you, click on the video on your screen right now. There are more stories here about the musicians who built the music you love and got written out of the history. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.